My daughter-in-law posted a TikTok calling me old-fashioned trash while I was stranded during a business trip. I'm not joking. September 15, 2024. I was stuck in room 314 at the Grand Hotel in Chicago, having just survived a corporate negotiation that had nearly collapsed. My son James was back home, pacing the floors, worried sick about the outcome. And where was Stephanie, my daughter-in-law? Back at my house, filming herself with her iPhone 15 Pro Max, day 3 of freedom from the house, she whispered to her camera. Eleanor's finally stuck on her trip, so we can talk about upgrading our lives. She posted it. She actually posted it. She thought I'd be too busy to see it. She had no idea what she just triggered. What she didn't know about our worthless house was about to change everything for her and her family. Before I explain the conclusion, you need to understand the beginning. Stephanie Davis Anderson married my son 3 years ago. From day one, she treated our family house like some kind of embarrassment. Our place is a large estate in Harvest Valley, Iowa, about 45 minutes from Des Moines. It's been in the Anderson family since 1924. The main structure is older than most buildings in town, built in 1952, the same year I was born. It's nothing flashy, but it's home. Stephanie viewed it differently. This isn't a home, she told James after their first overnight visit. It's a poverty museum. She claimed to come from old money. Her parents, David and Carol Davis, once owned a significant vineyard in Napa Valley. Once. They lost it all in the 2008 crash, but Stephanie never stopped pretending she was royalty. She drove an $89,000 BMW X7, carried a $12,500 Hermes Kelly bag, and wore designer outfits that cost more than most people's monthly income. Meanwhile, I drove my reliable 1990 Volvo sedan, worth maybe $8,200 on a good day. I wore practical blazers that cost $89 each and lasted 20 years. My definition of fancy was dinner at the Harvest Valley Diner, where the coffee is still $1.50. Her social media campaign began quietly. Instagram stories about visiting the suburbs, then TikTok videos about antique house adventures, always with that smirk, like she was documenting an exhibit at a zoo. My mother-in-law still uses a rotary phone. She'd giggle to her followers, literally from the Stone Age. The comments loved it. Girl, you're slumming it. How do you survive without Starbucks? That's not vintage, that's just sad. 6 months ago, her tone changed. Generational poverty is real, y'all, she posted, filming our kitchen with its 1970s appliances. Some families just accept being left behind. Her follower count exploded. 47,000 people watching her mock our life. Brand partnerships began arriving, skincare companies, fashion brands. Everyone wanted to sponsor the authentic influencer showing Real America. This is my content goldmine, she told James one night, thinking I couldn't hear from the living room. This poor house life is so hot right now. James tried defending us. Mom built something here, Steph. This house means everything to her. Built what? She laughed. A monument to refusing progress. Your mom's stuck in 1950, and she's trying to drag us down with her. But she was building a significant following with her house-shaming content. Each video was more brutal than the last. The wooden kitchen table handmade by my grandfather became furniture poverty. My collection of old business journals became hoarding behavior. Our family photos on the mantle became a shrine to failure. The breaking point arrived in August. Stephanie filmed herself in our living room, speaking directly to the camera. I've been documenting generational poverty for months now, she said, panning across our furniture. This is what happens when families refuse to evolve. Look at this place. Everything's falling apart. The carpets are from 1985. The couch has permanent body impressions. This isn't humble living. It's giving up. She zoomed in on my father's military honors, displayed in a simple frame on the bookshelf. Even their war memorabilia is bargain basement, she smirked. My followers deserve to see authentic wealth, not this antique store cosplay. 2.3 million views. 47,000 shares. The comments section exploded with people either defending us or joining her mockery. Local news picked it up. Iowa family becomes unlikely social media stars. That's when I knew she was planning something bigger. Something that would change our lives forever. But she had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. The cruelest conversation happened on September 18th, 3 days into my business trip. I was sitting in that hotel room, spreadsheets all around me, when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail, which recorded automatically. Stephanie's voice was crystal clear. She must have pocket-dialed while on another call. She thought I was unavailable. Thought she could speak freely. "Hi, this is Stephanie Anderson calling about the property listing we discussed." Property listing. My pulse started racing. Yes, the large house on Meadowbrook Road. My mother-in-law is incapacitated. Stuck on a business trip, complications with the deal. We need to move quickly while she can't interfere. I saved the recording from my voicemail. Every word. The asking price, well, the property appraiser said $920,000 for the whole package. Land, house, and structures. I know it seems low, but honestly, this place represents everything backward about America. Old people hoarding property while young families struggle. The realtor must have asked about me specifically. Eleanor Anderson. She's 68. No business sense whatsoever. Been managing the same properties for 40 years like it's still 1950. No modernization, no efficiency. The woman still handwrites her accounting in ledger books. Can you believe that? I could hear her heels clicking on the floor. She must have been pacing at home. Listen, between you and me, I'm doing society a favor getting this developed. The town needs progress, not some stubborn old woman's dusty museum. My husband's too sentimental to see it, but Eleanor's basically holding back the entire community. The realtor said something about market timing. Oh, the timing is perfect. Eleanor will be stuck on that trip for weeks, maybe. And honestly, at her age, with her old-fashioned ways, she might not be making decisions much longer anyway. Her son James has legal power of attorney. I just need to convince him that selling is the compassionate choice. My heart rate spiked in that hotel room. James still has these romantic ideas about family legacy and honoring his mother. But I've been working on him, showing him what we could do with $920,000. A nice house in Des Moines, maybe even Omaha, somewhere civilized. She paused, and I heard typing in the background of the voicemail. You know what the funniest part is? Eleanor thinks she's some kind of successful businesswoman. The woman drives a car older than my little sister, wears the same 3 blazers year-round, lives like she's afraid to spend a dime. If that's success, I'll take failure any day. The realtor must have asked about neighborhood interest. The neighbors will thank us. Everyone's tired of looking at that eyesore. Peeling paint, a sagging porch, old furniture scattered everywhere. It's dragging down property values for miles. This isn't a house. It's a poverty museum. Now she was getting animated. This was her true voice. I married into this family thinking there was hidden wealth somewhere. You know how these old families are supposed to be property rich? Well, turns out some are just property poor. Really, really poor. Eleanor's got maybe $50,000 in the bank on a good day. No investments, no retirement fund worth mentioning. Just dusty old property. Hundreds of acres of it. Another pause. More typing. My parents think I'm crazy for staying this long. They're right. I've got followers now, brand partnerships, real opportunities. But I can't build an influencer career from a dusty old house in nowhere, Iowa. This place represents everything I'm trying to escape. The realtor said something about paperwork. James will sign. He has to. I've shown him the numbers. We're bleeding money every month keeping this place running. Property taxes, utility bills, endless maintenance. It's like pouring money into a black hole. And for what? So Eleanor can pretend she's still relevant. She was walking again. I heard the sound change. The best part, once we sell, we can finally start living like adults. No more pretending to respect her old wisdom. No more family dinners in that depressing kitchen. No more listening to stories about the good old days when times were simpler. One final insult for the road. You want to know the truth? Eleanor Anderson is everything wrong with old America. Stubborn, backwards, and too proud to admit the world passed her by. This sale isn't just good business. It's mercy. For her and for us. The voicemail ended. I sat there in that hotel room, staring at the phone. If only she knew who she was really talking about. I kept that recording safe. Every word documented, every insult preserved. Because Stephanie Davis Anderson had no idea she just declared war on the wrong woman. I had exactly 72 hours to decide how this would end. My return flight was scheduled for September 21st. The realtor scheduled a property walkthrough for September 22nd. James was wavering, I could tell from his texts, caught between his wife's pressure and his own doubts. Stephanie was already posting TikToks about exciting life changes coming soon. I could have stopped it immediately. Picked up the phone in that hotel room, called my lawyer, and shut down the whole operation. But that would have been too easy, too simple. Stephanie thought she was dealing with a confused old woman who kept her money under the mattress. She had no idea what 3 decades of quiet investment had built. No idea that her worthless house was the headquarters for something much bigger. Let me tell you what she didn't know. In 1987, I bought my first property outside the family house, a foreclosed home in town for $12,000. I fixed it up, rented it out, and used that income to buy another, then another. By 1995, I owned 17 rental properties across 3 counties. But real estate was just the beginning. That same year, I started Anderson Holdings LLC. Not just managing local rentals, but investing in commercial properties, specialty developments, and direct contracts with corporate chains. Major retailers have been leasing from us since 2003. $285,000 in monthly revenue. That's what those worthless properties generate every month, for the past 15 years. The rental properties, 23 now, worth $14.2 million. Total monthly rent income, $67,000. The holdings company is valued at $38 million, according to our last business assessment. Stephanie was trying to sell a $920,000 house. She was actually trying to sell a $52 million business empire. But here's the part that would destroy her. 3 years ago, when her parents lost their vineyard and needed work, who do you think quietly hired them? David Davis, groundskeeper at Meadowbrook Country Club, $58,000 annual salary. Carol Davis, catering manager at the same club, $44,000 annual salary. They never knew their employer. All hiring went through management companies. All paychecks came from corporate accounts. But every dollar of their income for the past 3 years came from Eleanor Anderson's businesses. The country club itself? I bought it in 2019 when the previous owners defaulted on their loan. $3.2 million purchase price. Stephanie's parents work for me. They just don't know it. Remember Stephanie's sister? The one teaching at Willowbrook Private School, the school where Stephanie brags about her family's education connections? I own 51% of the school board. Have since 2021. Her grandmother's assisted living facility, funded through the Anderson Family Foundation, has been for 4 years. Even the apartment complex where Stephanie and James live, Anderson Properties LLC bought it last year when the previous owner went bankrupt. For 3 years, Stephanie's entire family has been surviving on my money. While she made TikToks mocking my poverty. But I wasn't ready to reveal any of this yet. Strategic patience. That's what my father taught me. Let your enemies defeat themselves, Eleanor. Then step aside and watch them fall. So I made my decision. I would let Stephanie continue her campaign. Let her dig deeper. Let her reveal exactly who she was to the whole world. Then, when she felt most confident, most secure in her victory, I would show her what real power looked like. I called my lawyer from the hotel room. Michael, I need you to document everything. Every social media post, every conversation, every legal document they try to file. I want a complete record. Are you planning to contest the sale? I'm planning to teach someone a lesson about respect. Next, I called my accountant. Janet, I need a full portfolio review. Every property, every business, every investment. I want documentation showing exactly how much the Anderson family is worth. Is this for estate planning? It's for education. Finally, I called the management company that runs Meadowbrook Country Club. This is Eleanor Anderson. I need you to schedule performance reviews for David and Carol Davis. Nothing negative, just standard evaluation procedures. And I want it done publicly during the monthly staff meeting. I hung up the phone. James sent me a text just as I finished the call. Mom, how are you feeling? I typed back, better than I have in years, son. Much better. He called me immediately. Mom, Stephanie's been talking about some big changes. Maybe selling the house, moving closer to the city. I looked at my phone, picturing my boy, 25 years old, good heart, but he'd never learned to see past people's masks. James, do you trust your wife's judgment about our family's worth? He shifted uncomfortably, I could hear it. I trust her intentions, Mom. Intentions don't pay bills, son. Results do. I had exactly one more day to finish my preparations on the trip. One more day before Stephanie discovered what happens when you declare war on the wrong woman. The clock was ticking, and I was ready. September 22nd. The day Stephanie planned to tour our worthless house with potential buyers. I flew home that morning, playing the part of a weak, exhausted old woman who needed help walking to the car. James fussed over me like I might collapse any second. Stephanie barely looked up from her phone. Take it easy today, Mom, James said, helping me into the passenger seat. The realtor's coming by around 2 p.m., but you don't need to be involved. Just rest. I'll be fine, son. Might make a few phone calls, check on some old friends. Stephanie finally glanced over. Try not to embarrass us in front of the realtor, okay? This is important. I understand completely. What she didn't understand was that my phone calls were about to turn her world upside down. First call went to Michael Stevens, my property manager at Meadowbrook Country Club. Michael, this is Eleanor Anderson. I need to discuss some staffing concerns. Of course, Ms. Anderson, what's the issue? I've been reviewing employee performance metrics, specifically David and Carol Davis. I understand they're coming up for their annual review. That's correct. Both have been solid employees. No complaints. Good. I want their reviews conducted at next week's staff meeting. Full transparency. And Michael, I want every employee to understand that their job security depends on maintaining our club's reputation for excellence. Absolutely, ma'am. Should I mention any specific performance standards? Just remind everyone that discretion and loyalty are core values here. Employees who respect the institution will always have a place. Those who don't, well, we have policies for that. Michael knew exactly what I meant. The club's employee handbook was crystal clear about social media conduct and confidentiality agreements. Second call went to Jennifer Martinez, my accountant. Jennifer, I need you to review the Anderson Foundation's charitable giving commitments. Certainly. Are you considering any changes? Just ensuring all recipients still meet our criteria, particularly any elderly care facilities we've been supporting. I want to verify that families we help are truly deserving of continued assistance. I'll pull those records. The Sunset Manor account, correct? Among others. Some beneficiary families may have changed circumstances. We should reassess their need for charitable support. Jennifer understood. The foundation's bylaws required regular evaluation of all recipients. If beneficiary families demonstrated ingratitude or disrespect toward donors, funding could be redirected to more deserving causes. Third call was to my business attorney. Patricia, I want to review our lease agreements, specifically residential properties managed through Anderson Holdings. Any particular concerns? Tenant behavior. Some renters may be violating community standards clauses. I need documentation ready for any necessary lease actions. I'll prepare the relevant files. Are we talking about specific properties? Willowbrook Apartments, Unit 23B. Recent tenant activity may constitute grounds for review. Patricia knew the drill. Every lease included behavioral clauses about maintaining community reputation. Social media attacks on local businesses or prominent community members could trigger review procedures. By noon, the machinery was in motion. That afternoon, while Stephanie gave her realtor tour, pointing out every problem with our primitive house, David Davis received an unexpected phone call at Meadowbrook Country Club. Mr. Davis, this is Michael Stevens, club manager. We need to schedule your annual performance review for next Tuesday's staff meeting. Staff meeting? Usually, those are private. New policy. Transparency initiative. All reviews will be conducted publicly to ensure fairness and accountability. David felt the first flutter of anxiety. Public reviews weren't normal. Something was changing. 2 hours later, Carol Davis got a similar call about her catering manager position. Mrs. Davis, we're implementing new social media guidelines for all employees. Please review the updated employee handbook. Any violations of our reputation standards will be addressed at Tuesday's meeting. Carol hung up, confused. She'd never had social media problems before. Why the sudden focus on online behavior? Meanwhile, at Sunset Manor Assisted Living, Administrator Susan Wright was reviewing a concerning letter from the Anderson Family Foundation regarding the annual beneficiary assessment for Matilda Davis. Dear Ms. Wright, as part of our standard evaluation process, the Anderson Family Foundation will be reviewing all charitable commitments for the upcoming fiscal year. Please prepare documentation regarding Mrs. Matilda Davis's continued need for assistance, including any family support network evaluation. Matilda was Stephanie's grandmother. Her $3,200 monthly care costs had been covered by the foundation for 4 years. The letter suggested that support might be reconsidered. Susan immediately called the Davis family. Carol answered, sounding stressed. Mrs. Davis, we need to discuss your mother's care arrangements. The foundation that's been covering her expenses is conducting a review. Review? What kind of review? They're evaluating whether families have other means of support. If they determine your family no longer qualifies for assistance. Carol's stomach dropped. Without foundation support, Matilda would have to transfer to a county facility. The family couldn't afford $3,200 monthly. Is there anything specific that triggered this review? I'm not certain. They mentioned family circumstances may have changed. Has anything happened recently that might affect your financial situation? Carol looked around her small apartment. Nothing had changed. If anything, money was tighter than ever. David's groundskeeper's salary barely covered their basic expenses. That evening, David and Carol compared their strange phone calls over dinner. Something's happening, David said. Performance reviews aren't usually public. And why the sudden focus on social media? The foundation letter mentioned family circumstances changing, Carol worried. What could they mean? Neither connected these events to their daughter's social media campaign. Neither realized that Stephanie's harmless, house-mocking videos had attracted the wrong kind of attention. But her parents had no idea their lucky breaks were about to end. Because across town, Eleanor Anderson was reviewing documentation that would change their lives forever. Property deeds, employment contracts, foundation records, everything connected to one uncomfortable truth. For 3 years, the Davis family had been living entirely on money from the poor woman their daughter was trying to destroy. And tomorrow, they would start learning what that meant. James found me in the study the next morning, September 23rd, reviewing property documents at my old wooden desk. "Mom, we need to talk." I looked up from a stack of papers, bank statements, mostly. Monthly deposits from Anderson Holdings, Anderson Properties, and about a dozen other revenue streams. "Of course we do, son. Pull up that stool." James sat down, but he looked uncomfortable. "It's about Stephanie. About the house sale." "What about it?" "She's been getting some strange reactions online. People are asking questions about our finances, about whether we're really as poor as she's been saying." I nodded thoughtfully. "Smart people, those online folks." "What kind of questions?" "Stupid stuff. Like, how can we afford Stephanie's car if we're so broke? Why does she have designer clothes if we're supposedly struggling? Someone even asked how we pay for health insurance without outside help." Good questions. "How did she answer?" James shifted on the stool. "She said you're too proud to admit we need help. That you've been hiding our financial problems to protect your ego." I set down my pen and looked at my son. "James, do you trust your wife's judgment about our family's worth?" "I trust her. But Mom, some things aren't adding up." "Such as?" "Well, if we're so poor, how come you never ask me for money? I've got a good job in town, $75,000 a year. I've offered to help with house expenses. You always say no. Maybe I don't need help." James gestured around the study. "Look at this place, Mom. You've got furniture that should have been replaced 20 years ago. The house needs a new roof. The porch is sagging. If you had money, wouldn't you fix these things?" I opened the top drawer of my desk and pulled out a folder. "James, what would you say if I told you that the sagging porch and old furniture are choices, not necessities?" "I'd say that doesn't make sense." I handed him a bank statement. Chase business account, Anderson Holdings LLC. Balance, $847,382. James stared at the numbers. "Mom, what is this?" "Monthly operating account. That's after paying all expenses, salaries, and maintenance costs." I handed him another statement. Anderson Properties LLC. Balance, $523,195. Rental income account. 23 properties across 3 counties. James's hands were shaking. "I don't understand. If you have this money, why do we live like we're poor?" "Because living simply isn't the same as being poor, son. Your grandmother grew up during the Depression. She taught me that flashy wealth makes you a target. Quiet wealth keeps you safe." I handed him one more document. Property deed for Meadowbrook Country Club. "James, where do Stephanie's parents work?" "The country club." "Why?" "Read the owner's name on that deed." James read it twice. "Eleanor Anderson." "Mom, you own the country club?" "Bought it in 2019. Previous owners defaulted on their loan. I picked it up for $3.2 million. So, David and Carol, they work for you. Have for 3 years. They just don't know it. All hiring goes through management companies." James stood up, pacing around the small office. "This is insane. Stephanie's been making videos about how poor we are. Her parents have been feeling sorry for us. And the whole time, her family has been living on my money. Does she know?" "Not yet. But she's about to learn." James stopped pacing. "Mom, she's my wife. I love her. But what she's been doing, the things she's said about you, about our family." James had to choose what kind of man he wanted to be. I know what kind of man I want to be. The kind who stands up for his family. I smiled for the first time in days. "Good answer, son. What do we do now?" "Now? We let Stephanie continue digging her hole. And when she's in deep enough, we show her how far she has to climb back out. The country club has their annual charity gala next week. October 12th. I know. I donate $100,000 every year. Largest donation of the evening. James's eyes widened. You're planning something. I'm planning to teach your wife a lesson about respect. The question is, are you with me? I'm with you, Mom. All the way. October 5th, Stephanie's biggest mistake yet. I was in the kitchen making coffee when James burst through the front door, phone in hand. Mom, you need to see this. Now. He held up his screen, TikTok video. 3.8 million views and climbing. The title read, Escaping Generational Poverty, How I'm Breaking the Cycle. I sat down at our old wooden table and watched my daughter-in-law destroy herself. The video opened with Stephanie standing in our living room, wearing a $2,400 Saint Laurent sweater, while pointing at our poor furniture. Y'all, I've been documenting suburban poverty for months now, she said to the camera. But today, I want to talk about something deeper. Generational poverty. The mindset that keeps families trapped. She walked to our mantel, pointing at family photos. This is my mother-in-law's family shrine. For generations of Anderson family who never left this house. Never aspired to anything bigger. Never questioned whether there might be a better way. The camera panned across our living room. Look at this place. Furniture from the 1980s. Carpet with permanent stains. Walls that haven't been painted since I was born. This isn't humble living. This is giving up. She moved to the kitchen, opening our refrigerator. Generic brands. Store brand everything. Not because they can't afford name brands, but because they've convinced themselves that spending money is wasteful, that wanting nice things is selfish. My coffee mug trembled in my hands. My husband grew up thinking this was normal. Thinking this was noble. His mother convinced him that real people live simply, and never ask for help, even when they're drowning financially. She held up one of my old business journals. Eleanor reads these business journals like they're scripture, studying old investment strategies like it's 1950. Meanwhile, the world has moved on. Tech companies are making billions. Young entrepreneurs are creating generational wealth. And she's out there managing old houses. The camera followed her to my desk in the corner. Look at this. Handwritten ledgers. She still does her accounting with a pencil and paper. Won't even use Excel. Claims computers are unreliable. This is what learned helplessness looks like. She opened one of my ledger books, showing rows of neat handwriting. Rental income, maintenance costs, property taxes. 40 years of the same data over and over. Never questioning whether there might be better opportunities. Never wondering if her son deserves more. The video cut to her sitting on our front porch. I married into this family because I saw potential. I thought James could break the cycle, build something bigger than old houses and rentals. But his mother's poverty mindset is toxic. It's contagious. She gestured toward the house. Eleanor would rather repair that 1990 Volvo for the 100th time than admit she should upgrade. Rather patch holes in the house roof than build something modern. It's not about money. It's about identity. She's afraid that changing anything means admitting her whole life was a mistake. The camera zoomed in on her face. But here's the thing. Generational poverty isn't just about money. It's about vision. It's about believing you deserve better. And I'm not going to let my future children inherit this limitation. She stood up, looking directly into the camera. So, yes, we're selling the house. Yes, we're moving somewhere with actual opportunities. And yes, I'm going to keep documenting this journey, because someone needs to show young women that you don't have to accept the life you're born into. The video ended with her walking toward her BMW, designer bag swinging. Follow me for more real talk about escaping small-town limitations. Hashtag generational wealth, hashtag breaking cycles, hashtag antique life, hashtag small-town struggles, hashtag authentic influencer. I set my phone down. James was watching my face carefully. Mom, you okay? Better than okay, son. She just gave me exactly what I needed. What do you mean? I pulled out my own phone and scrolled to the comments section. The tide was already turning. Check this out. Girl, you're wearing a $2,000 sweater while calling your family poor. Another one, if they're so broke, how do you afford that car? Here's a good one, something doesn't add up about this story. James read over my shoulder. The comments section was filling with skeptical voices. At Stephanie_Anderson_official, your math ain't mathing. Designer clothes plus luxury car plus poverty equals? Girls wearing my annual salary while complaining about her poor in-laws. Anyone else notice she never shows receipts? Where's the proof of this poverty? I smiled. The internet was about to teach her about authentic struggle. What happens now? Now we wait. Her credibility is cracking. When it breaks completely, we'll be there to show everyone the truth. The charity gala is in 1 week. Perfect timing. She'll be riding high on viral fame, thinking she's untouchable. I stood up, walked to the window. That's when we strike. October 10th, 2 days before the charity gala. Time to compile everything. I spread the documents across our dining room table like a general planning a campaign. 3 years of evidence. 3 years of careful documentation. 3 years of watching Stephanie's family unknowingly depend on my charity while she mocked my poverty. James sat across from me, staring at the paper mountain. Mom, this is incredible. How long have you been preparing for this? Since the day she posted that first video mocking our kitchen. I knew eventually she'd push too far. I organized the documents into neat stacks. First pile, property deeds. 23 rental properties worth $14.2 million. Meadowbrook Country Club, purchased for $3.2 million. Willowbrook Private School, 51% ownership stake. Anderson Holdings, valued at $38 million by the state assessor. Total real estate portfolio, I told James, $52.4 million. Second pile, employment records. David Davis, hired as groundskeeper, September 2021. Annual salary, $58,000. Carol Davis, hired as catering manager, October 2021. Annual salary, $44,000. Both employees of Meadowbrook Country Club, I said, owned by Eleanor Anderson. Her parents' combined income for 3 years, $306,000. Every dollar from companies I own. Third pile, foundation documents. The Anderson Family Foundation had quietly supported multiple Davis family needs. Matilda Davis's assisted living costs, $3,200 monthly for 48 months. Total charitable giving to Stephanie's grandmother, $153,600. I'd been paying for her grandmother's care since 2020, before Stephanie even joined our family. Fourth pile, business records. Anderson Holdings managed properties for 17 major corporate chains across the Midwest. Monthly revenue averaged $285,000. Annual profit last year, $2.1 million. That worthless old property generated more profit than most small corporations. Fifth pile, the social media evidence. Screenshots of every insulting post, every mocking video, every comment where Stephanie called us poor, backward, or old-fashioned. Her follower count had exploded to 127,000 people watching her house-shaming content. Legal documentation of systematic defamation, I explained. Every insult preserved with timestamps. James picked up a bank statement. Mom, this shows you donated $100,000 to the charity gala last year, and the year before, and the year before that. Largest individual donation every year since 2018. So, when Stephanie shows up to the gala tomorrow night, she'll be attending an event funded largely by the woman she's been calling old-fashioned trash. I opened my laptop and showed James the gala's website. The sponsor page listed major donors. Platinum level sponsor, $100,000 plus Anderson Family Foundation. James laughed despite himself. She has no idea, does she? None whatsoever. Look at this. I pulled up Stephanie's latest Instagram story, posted 2 hours ago. A photo of her new $3,400 Valentino dress with the caption, "Finally attending a classy event where I belong." Hashtag charity gala, hashtag high society, hashtag elevating my circle. She thinks she's escaping our poverty by attending an event I've been funding for 6 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, my business attorney. All documents ready for presentation. Projector reserved for main ballroom. Board members standing by for witness statements. Another text from Michael Stevens, the club manager. Ms. Anderson, David and Carol Davis both confirmed attendance at tomorrow's event. They're excited about the employee recognition portion of the evening. I hadn't told Michael that the employee recognition would include termination announcements. James looked nervous. Mom, this is going to destroy her. Publicly. In front of 350 people. Son, she destroyed herself. I'm just providing the documentation. But the aftermath, her parents losing their jobs, her grandmother losing her care funding. I set down the papers and looked at James seriously. 3 years ago, when David and Carol needed work, I hired them quietly. Gave them good jobs, steady income, health insurance. I've been subsidizing Matilda's care since before I knew their daughter existed. I know, Mom. I never asked for gratitude. Never demanded recognition. Just helped a family in need because that's what neighbors do. I picked up a printed screenshot of Stephanie's worst video. But when that family's daughter decides to mock my life, insult my character, and try to steal my property while calling me old-fashioned trash, the charity ends. James nodded slowly. What happens after tomorrow night? After tomorrow night, Stephanie learns the difference between earned wealth and performed wealth. Between authentic success and social media followers. I gathered all the documents into a briefcase. And her family learns what it means to bite the hand that feeds you. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. Time for the final act. The charity gala would begin in 36 hours, and Stephanie Davis Anderson was about to discover what real power looked like. October 12th, Meadowbrook Country Club's annual charity gala. 350 of the county's most prominent citizens gathering for an evening of fundraising and social networking. Black tie event, $850 per plate, with a silent auction featuring luxury items and vacation packages. Stephanie had been preparing for weeks. Hair appointment at noon, $400. Professional makeup, $300. The Valentino dress, $3,400. Designer shoes, $890. She documented every detail on Instagram stories, building anticipation for her high society debut. Tonight, I finally get to be around my people, she posted at 6 p.m., showing off her outfit. No more pretending to fit in with small-town values. This is where I belong. Hashtag charity gala, hashtag high society, hashtag elevating my circle. I watched her stories from my own home, 3 miles away. I'd been getting ready, too, but differently. A simple black dress I'd owned for 15 years. No flash, no fanfare. James knocked on my door at 6:30. Mom, you sure about this? Never been more sure of anything. We drove to the club in my old Volvo sedan. I wanted to make an entrance that Stephanie would never forget. The Meadowbrook Country Club ballroom was elegant. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, centerpieces of autumn flowers. A string quartet played in the corner. Waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Stephanie and James arrived at 7:15 in her BMW. I watched from the bar as she made her grand entrance, designer dress glittering under the lights. She immediately started working the room, introducing herself to board members and prominent families. Hi, I'm Stephanie Anderson, I heard her tell Margaret Williams, the bank president's wife. My family and I are new to the club's social circle. Margaret smiled politely. Anderson? I know that name. Your family's been very generous to our charity events. Stephanie looked confused. Oh, that must be a different Anderson family. We're new to charitable giving. I almost laughed. Margaret was talking about my donations, not realizing Stephanie was my daughter-in-law. By 8 p.m., the formal program began. Club President Richard Taylor took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual charity gala. Tonight, we've raised over $480,000 for local food banks and educational programs. Applause filled the room. Stephanie clapped enthusiastically, probably calculating her social media content. Before we begin our recognition ceremony, I want to acknowledge our most generous supporters. This year's platinum sponsor, with a donation of $100,000, is the Anderson Family Foundation. More applause. Stephanie looked around, confused. James squeezed her hand, but his face was tense. As has been our tradition for 6 years, Ms. Eleanor Anderson will now address the gathering. The room went quiet. I stood up from my table near the back. Stephanie's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Good evening, everyone. I walked slowly toward the podium, carrying my briefcase. The room was completely silent, except for my footsteps and the faint whisper of fabric as 350 people turned to watch. For those who don't know me, I'm Eleanor Anderson. I own a simple house outside town. A very simple operation. I reached the podium and set down my briefcase. Some of you may have seen social media content recently about suburban poverty, generational limitations, and the struggles of old-fashioned families. My daughter-in-law has been quite vocal about these issues. Stephanie was frozen at her table. David and Carol Davis, seated with other club employees, looked confused. I wanted to take this opportunity to address some misconceptions about our family's finances in this community. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first document. This is the property deed for Meadowbrook Country Club. Purchase price, $3.2 million. Purchased in 2019 by Anderson Holdings LLC. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. David Davis went pale. I mention this because several of our valued employees may not realize who ultimately signs their paychecks. I held up employment contracts. David Davis, groundskeeper. Carol Davis, catering manager. Both excellent employees for the past 3 years. Combined salaries, $102,000 annually. Carol's hands flew to her mouth. The club members were looking back and forth between the stage and the Davis family table. I also want to address the Anderson Family Foundation's charitable work. We've been quietly supporting local families in need. Another document. Matilda Davis's assisted living care. Monthly support, $3,200. For 48 months. Total foundation contribution, $153,600. Stephanie was trying to become invisible, slumping in her chair. Now, you might wonder why I'm sharing this information publicly. After all, charity should be private, shouldn't it? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the projector system. Unfortunately, some recipients of our family's generosity have chosen to publicly mock that generosity. The first screenshot appeared on the large screen. Stephanie's TikTok video, calling our house a poverty museum. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. This video received 2.3 million views. The creator called my family old-fashioned trash and our house everything backward about America. More screenshots appeared, each more insulting than the last. My mother-in-law represents generational poverty. Old people hoarding property. Antique store cosplay. These are direct quotes from social media content created by someone whose family has been living on Anderson Foundation charity for 3 years. The room was dead silent. Stephanie had put her head in her hands. I want to be very clear about our house's actual financial situation. Property deeds appeared on screen. Anderson Holdings, Anderson Properties, 23 rental properties. Combined value, $14.2 million. Business operations, $38 million. Monthly revenue, $285,000. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. The poor woman trying to sell her worthless property for $920,000 actually owns a $52 million business empire. Richard Taylor, the club president, was staring at the screen in amazement. Eleanor, I had no idea you were. That's the point, Richard. Real wealth doesn't need announcements. It doesn't need social media validation. It just works quietly, helping people who need help. I turned to face Stephanie's table directly. Until those people decide to bite the hand that feeds them. Stephanie finally looked up. Tears had ruined her $300 makeup. Effective immediately, the Anderson Family Foundation is reassessing all charitable commitments. Recipients who demonstrate ingratitude or disrespect will have their funding redirected to more deserving causes. David Davis stood up shakily. Ms. Anderson, ma'am, we had no idea. I know you didn't, David. That was intentional. But your daughter did know. She was attacking her family's benefactor. She just didn't care. I pulled out the final document. Employment termination notices for David and Carol Davis. Effective Monday morning. Matilda Davis's assisted living funding ends October 31st. The apartment lease for Unit 23B at Willowbrook Complex is voided for violation of community standards. Carol started crying. David sat down hard, looking like he might faint. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when performed wealth meets authentic wealth. When social media followers try to compete with actual financial power. I closed my briefcase and looked around the room. Stephanie wanted to show her followers what escaping poverty looked like. Now they can watch her learn what real poverty feels like. The crowd sat in stunned silence as I walked back to my table. Stephanie stumbled to her feet, designer dress wrinkled, makeup destroyed. Eleanor, please. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You just assumed. You judged. You mocked. And you broadcast that mockery to millions of people. I'll delete everything. I'll apologize publicly. Please don't do this to my parents. I sat down at my table and picked up my wine glass. Stephanie, 3 years ago, I quietly hired your parents because they needed work. I've been paying your grandmother's care costs since before you joined our family. I never asked for credit. Never demanded recognition. I know. I'm sorry. But I also never tolerated disrespect. And I certainly don't subsidize people who call me old-fashioned trash on social media. The room was watching this exchange like a tennis match. Your followers wanted to see authentic wealth. Now they know what it looks like. It looks like consequences. Security appeared at my elbow. Ms. Anderson, should we escort them out? No need. They'll leave on their own. Stephanie grabbed James's arm. Please, James, talk to her. James looked at his wife with something between pity and disgust. Steph, you did this. All of it. She gave your family everything, and you mocked her for sport. But I didn't know. That's exactly the problem. You never tried to know. They left through the ballroom's main entrance, Stephanie's heels echoing on the marble floor. The room stayed silent until the doors closed behind them. Then Richard Taylor started clapping. Margaret Williams joined him. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was applauding. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard announced. Let's hear it for authentic generosity and appropriate boundaries. The ovation lasted 3 full minutes. October 15th, 3 days after the gala. The consequences rolled out exactly as promised. David and Carol Davis received their final paychecks Monday morning. 36 years of steady employment ended because their daughter couldn't control her social media mouth. They tried calling me, left voicemails begging for reconsideration. I didn't return the calls. Matilda Davis got moved to County Assisted Living Tuesday afternoon. The facility was clean and adequately staffed, but the private room with garden views was gone. Now she shared space with 3 other residents in a ward that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Stephanie and James's apartment lease was voided Wednesday. They had 72 hours to relocate. With their combined income down to just James's $75,000 salary, luxury housing wasn't an option anymore. The social media fallout was swift and brutal. Stephanie's "Escaping Generational Poverty" video got flooded with comments after news of the charity gala spread. This aged like milk. Imagine calling your billionaire mother-in-law old-fashioned trash. The poor woman owns a $52 million empire. The poor influencer is about to learn what actual poverty looks like. She deleted TikTok first, then Instagram, then Facebook. Her follower count hemorrhaged faster than her family's bank account. Local news picked up the story. Social media influencers' house-shaming campaign backfires spectacularly. The Des Moines Register ran a feature about hidden wealth in rural Iowa. 3 different media outlets reached out for interviews. I declined them all. James came to see me Friday evening. Found me in the study. Same wooden desk, same old ledger books. "Mom, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For not standing up sooner. For letting her disrespect you and our family for so long." I set down my pen. "James, marriage is complicated. Loyalty gets tested. You chose correctly when it mattered. What happens now? Now you decide whether you're married to someone who loves you, or someone who loves your potential status." She wants to try counseling. Says she can change. People can change, son. But they have to want to change for the right reasons, not just because they got caught. James nodded. "What about her family? Her parents are good people. They didn't deserve this." "You're right. They didn't deserve what their daughter did to them. Or what she did to us." I opened my desk drawer and handed him a business card. "Tell David to call me next week. I might know someone who needs a good groundskeeper. Someone who appreciates loyalty and discretion." "Really? Really? Punish the behavior, not the family. That's the difference between justice and revenge." James smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thanks, Mom. Just remember this lesson, son. Authentic wealth serves others. Fake wealth serves only ego. Choose wisely." After he left, I sat in the quiet study, surrounded by 40 years of memories. The wooden desk my father built. The ledger books that tracked our family's real success. The simple tools that created a $52 million empire. Stephanie was right about one thing. Generational wealth is real. But it's not about money. It's about character. And character, unlike social media followers, can't be bought.